I've abandoned a lot of projects. I've poured hours and hours of development into games just to stow them away in my great unfinished archives. Even though these games will never be finished, I don't see the point in letting them waste away without ever getting a chance to be in the spotlight. So, let's explore a few games that weren't. The first game is so large that I labeled it as almost finished during the creation of this video. I only have one game that's larger, and that's the Orb Ultra Deluxe. Yep, no inspiration from the Stanley parable on that one. None at all. A great amount of planning and art went into the prototyping of this game. I created an entire world many sections in length. Each had its own unique landscape and layers, and each played into the larger world. This game... Wait, I never told you the title. Well, there's just one teeny tiny issue with that. You see, I never named it. I'm terrible with game names. Don't believe me? Just look at my titles. Ninja, The 1 Hour Game, Cave Platformer 3, Untitled Unity Game. I suppose I'll just have to refer to it as its file name, Epic Game. So humble, I know. Well, I made many original scripts for Epic Game, most of which I ended up using for my other projects, such as my dialogue arrow script. I even adapted this same script into my current Unity game. The collectible animation found its way into the 1 Hour Game, and also into a new secret game that you'll hear more about later in this video. Epic Game also premiered location-based audio. If you listen carefully, you can hear that the noise of water is only heard while you stand near a waterfall. I even had my super artistic friend, you can follow her here on Twitter by the way, draw some concept art for the main character. I was picturing that this could be a close-up or perhaps a portrait of the player in a bit of dialogue, like can be seen in Celeste. Unfortunately, since the game has a tiny aspect ratio, something that detail just doesn't work. So we had to create a new, super simplified version of the character. In this version, her hair is stylized into one blob, and the features of her face are just left out. I imported her into the game, but this is where I stopped. This time, I didn't quit because of a lack of inspiration. In fact, I had grand designs for where Epic Game was going to go. The world was going to be a sprawling kingdom where the player can unlock new sections as they collect new abilities. There were to be several biomes, including a jungle and a deep cave section. What really killed this project was Scratch itself. As I imported more and more bits of art, it got harder and harder to keep track of what I was making. In an engine like Unity, I can view my entire game on screen at the same time. But in Scratch, I have to just imagine how it all fits together. I took a long look at the game and decided I didn't want to continue on this venture. I make Scratch games because I find it fun, and Epic Game was not looking particularly enjoyable to create. So, I set the game aside. But fear not, it's not all gone. As I said, I've reused loads of assets and mechanics from this game in my recent games, and I even have one game planned that might use some of the art. Plus, without this game, I couldn't make this video. Another abandoned game, Brainwaves, was never destined for completion. I made the game for a 1 hour game jam just between friends. 1 hour is barely any time, so the jam was just supposed to be an exercise in brainstorming. When I started the game, I didn't have any plans to finish it, but that doesn't mean it was worthless to me. Creating a bunch of small demos is great practice. My stroke of inspiration for this game was the question, what if the level reacted to the player? Perhaps objects could move slower when within the player's brainwaves. I gave the player an aura of influence that can be expanded when the player presses the spacebar. Inside this aura, the dangers move in slow motion. The player can use this mechanic to get around fast-moving obstacles. Since I didn't have much time, I just drew some basic gray art and threw a few spikes in the level. I barely was able to finish the foreground before my time ran out. I had to submit the game. Now, the work I had come up with was impressive for an hour, but it was still a bit of a half-baked idea. The player was still able to get through the obstacles without ever pressing space, and I had no idea how to rebalance the mechanics to make the levels truly functional. So, I discarded this game, but not the base idea. I reused the exact same slow motion mechanic in level 21 of the 1-hour game, which I released a few months ago. So, even though I never finished this game, I'm definitely not disappointed that I started it. But, while most of these games are recent, I have one that is nearly 4 years old now. I quit this game very late in development. This game was lovingly titled New Game 2. Wow, so creative. Great job, past self. You showcased your characteristic great naming skills very early. This game was supposed to follow a bit of a story, unlike the games I had made before it. The narrator, just displayed as a bit of text on each level, was supposed to become increasingly agitated as the player progressed. The narrator was supposed to be truly sad because he was losing his only companion, even though that companion was a prisoner. The game didn't really explain that story point all that well, but I have to give my past self a bit of leeway. The gameplay was just some simple platforming with some moving objects. Nothing really stood out. And that's kind of why I stopped. I was looking at the game, and it wasn't all I had hoped it would be. I wasn't skilled enough to make my idea a reality, so I quit. But, looking back, I think this game idea has great potential. That's probably why I'm making something like it today. I really wanted to make this video to showcase some of my games that have never seen the light of day. I've quit developing a lot of games for a ton of different reasons, and I definitely wasn't able to fit all the games I've abandoned into this video. While I was writing the script, I discovered that I have at least 30 unfinished games hiding away in my dusty archives. Unfortunately, I had to pick only 3 for this video. With that said, thank you for watching. If you find my game development interesting, you might enjoy the devlogs of the game I'm currently creating in Unity. That is, if you still yearn for more of my droning.